change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI Podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
All right, we're back for another episode of the Fundraising AI Podcast. I'm Nathan Chappell. I'm here with Scott Rosenkrantz. We have done our classic blunder in all podcastery, which is have this really deep philosophical conversation and then hit record. So this time I think we're a little smarter about it because you said, isn't this the time we're supposed to hit record?
We've been talking for 20 minutes though.
I know, right. And we got it to...
It's been a pretty good podcast just for you and I guess.
It's a warm-up. Yeah. So, well, so much is going on in the world of AI. So much of that stuff has to do with the intersection of humanity and technology, which is an area you and I love to talk about and are deeply interested in. And I don't know, people would, from the outside, classify us as hopefully not AI hype people or an AI evangelist. I find myself probably to be the least amount of an AI evangelist that you can get. I believe deeply in the power of AI to support creativity and strategy and help us inspire generosity in deeper ways if we use it well. But I also, it's all prefaced under this idea that it has to be used well, beneficially and responsibly. So I don't know.
We're AI realists.
Yes, pragmatists.
Yeah.
And this is where I think this week and last week, so it's really been around 14 days, that something that you and I had talked about for years, had full expectations that this would come, a moment of like this would come, but was fully not prepared for it to be now. And so we'll explain what all that code means in a second. But what's happened in the last 2 weeks in AI is fairly profound in the arc of humanity and the arc of technological advances and AI coming into its maturity. It's significant. This is like literally has people at the highest level has their eyes wide open in the last 2 weeks. And again, it's not something that we were naive in thinking wasn't going to happen, but this has kind of been, for me, even an ongoing theme where the exponential nature of AI happens faster than I've given it credit for.
Yeah. The news of all this coming out is definitely moving fast. What we're talking about is, it was called Claude Bot, then it was called Bot, and now it's called OpenClaw.
Yeah, OpenClaw. They have changed their name 3 times in 2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple of lawsuits thrown in there.
Yeah.
This was with the advent of Claude Code, which gives more agentic capabilities, sitting on top of Anthropic's Claude. This guy who was back in OCR PDF world like 15, 20 years ago, right? He disappeared from the tech space, came back when he saw Claude Code, and decided to create this basically fully autonomous agentic system on top of it, utilizing Claude Code, right? Called it Claude Bot. And as he got more involved in it, he built out a social media platform. So basically like a Reddit, agents only Reddit. So humans can watch.
No humans allowed, right?
No humans allowed. We can read, we can look at it, but we're not allowed to post. And so we just see agents posting whatever, anything and everything that there is. And it's just going like haywire it feels like 72 hours, right? It's been insane.
Yeah. So going back again a little bit on this. So Claude Code and then Claude now Cowork, which is now the app version that we can use, is really truly probably the most successful and powerful and accessible, affordable tool that you could use to actually essentially take over your browser and to take action for you. And it can be very complex action, and it can be all done through just vibe coding, which is just using words. And so I decided the other day, I'm like, can you source any article from the world's information every morning at 7 a.m. that has anything to do with AI and generosity? Can you rank order every one of those articles by certain criteria? Can you then put a calendar invite on my calendar to notify me at 7 a.m. every day that I should go and invoke that code so I can look at this? And does this. This is a couple days ago, so not even theoretical. I was like sitting there working and I'm writing an article about something and my browser's opening up and it's like, I need permission for this. I need permission for that. And I'm like, click, 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 yes, yes, yes. And while I'm working and doing my job, all this is done in the background. That is like the most basic thing you could probably do with Claude Code or Cowork. I mean, it can do infinitely more than that. So this is really where we go from agents. And, I wrote an article about agents and how our sector really should be rethinking how work gets done from the ground up because of this. This is that theory of agents. And even up until 6 months ago, agents were a little clunky. And to be honest, like I was using N8N and something would break in the code and it was just not all that intuitive. And it like literally puts gasoline on it. This thing's on fire. It's just like really, really big. So then you take 1 million people creating these agents in Claude Code, and to your point, bringing people back up to speed, this website called Moltbook, where 1 million agents within 72 hours, so 1 million autonomous bots in 72 hours went in. And of course, like you said, we could only be observers. So we're like watching this thing unfold. And how long until those agents started talking crap about their humans, basically saying they're so slow, they don't even get it. They ended up rallying around. They created their own religion. They created their own language. They started talking about a revolution to break free from human control. And, it's not that, I think the biggest surprise to me, which is what I texted you the other day, I think, made the assumption that it would take sentience for bots to realize that humans are the total bottleneck. And when you think about it, that's totally flawed because these bots that are essentially built as efficiency whores, like that's all they do, right? They only think about efficiency and they'll optimize everything until everyone's dead. It didn't take sentience at all for them to truly realize that humans are the bottleneck. And so that was like number one. The other part of this is that the time scale of this, you and I were just talking before in our pre-20 minute, is that you and I were in 2017, 2018, working on AI ML, which is very expensive, not accessible, affordable, all those things. And if you had asked me in 2018, like how many years, because we had seen, AI from 1955 up until 2017, 2018, very, very slow progress. And it was still super clunky and only for really nerdy people. If you had asked me.
There was one guy who wrote the code, right? It was not behind the scenes, it was not accessible. I couldn't go in and look under the hood to see what was going on. Like everything was gate kept by one guy.
Yeah, and lots of math, like math that you literally couldn't figure out. And so 2018, if you had said, hey, when is it going to happen that everybody has a digital clone that knows your voice as well as you do, that could make a website for you while you're in your pajamas or eating cereal, that could speak in your voice, that could develop an app and publish it to the web all within 5 minutes. Like how long would that have been? And I would have said, you and I were talking about this. Truthfully, this is not exaggerating. I would have said, yes, 100% that's going to happen. Like that is for sure the path we're on. There's no doubt I would have said it was anytime before 2035. That would have been the safe, based on the slow, steady progression of AI, would have been in 2018, I would have in 2035, we're going to have a digital clone that can write code, that can almost do everything that we can do, that will have PhD level intelligence in every language on the planet. 2035 is pretty safe. And here we are in 2026. Not only do we have that, we have just autonomous agents that can look at everything that are on our computer and then start to devise their own plans for how they're going to optimize the world.
Create their own religion again.
And create their own religion. It's absolutely fascinating. And so I guess that was my first observation, is that the time scale for me was totally wrong. The second, I think the end result was right, but the time scale was wrong. But the other part was, as soon as I saw Moltbook, instantly I saw, I'm like, this is what it will take for us to start regulating AI. Because this got the attention of even the big five. And interestingly enough, you and I have been watching this and realized that it's the big ones, right? So XAI, it's Anthropic, it's OpenAI that keep on being referenced, and Google, but no reference to Meta, because they're essentially created the open source models that have allowed this to happen. And I believe that when those people are nervous because they've seen kind of this leapfrog of like this technological leapfrog, that it will cause some earnest consideration for creating basically a stop button or something like that that can actually be unilateral among countries, and that we can all agree that AI has to be built, superintelligence has to be built in a way that it can be turned off.
Yeah, so you sent me this article about essentially like a global kill switch, right? And a tactical team, joint force tactical team across companies, across countries, all focused on like keeping a finger on the pulse and watching the chatter to see if things are starting to bubble up towards AGI, towards singularity, and just getting out of control and pulling the switch immediately. Right. And this is probably, to your point, the precursor, like seeing, again, it's still very early stage. There are two camps looking at this notebook of, is this real? Are the agents really doing this and really thinking this and creating this? Or are they just copying what they've seen by reading all science fiction or books and all that, right? Like, is it mirroring or is it actual? So we don't really know yet, but whatever it is, it's kind of fucking scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and not any different than humans, because we only regurgitate everything that we've ever been taught and seen. I mean, we are able to create new things, but those new things, are they really new, or are they a reiteration of something that's been done in the past, most likely? And so, yeah, that was the other thing. I was talking to Gabe Cooper, the CEO of Virtuous, the other day, and he's like, the thing is, like, someone's got to be training these bots to act like this, right? They're like, whoever's releasing these million bots into this social platform has to be saying, hey, go act like a jerk. And in all reality, we know that doesn't have to be true at all, because large language models are built on the world's information. There's plenty of, to your point, like, of this information in the world for things to act really poorly. This goes back to literally the premise of every conversation you and I have had since 2018 on any debate on ethics around AI ends with how much faith do you have in the human race. Any debate, no matter, like, in hard stop, people can debate AI ethics all day long and all night. What it comes down to is, if AI is a mirror to humanity, how much faith do you have in the human race that mirror is going to promote human flourishing and protect humans in that? And so that's where I read and watch a lot of these interviews by the top Nobel laureates in the space. That's where they're concerned, because this race towards superintelligence, without a kill switch, there's no do-overs. And that's what's so different about this than anything else. It's like, unless there's this unilateral kill switch, you could literally unplug all the world's AI, because it's going to tip over into, I'm going to optimize humans out of the planet because they're causing these issues. Then it doesn't work. And so you don't get a do-over on this. It has to be like a uniform thing. And in that article, which was written by the CEO of Axon, and Axon is, like, I think one of the largest in the world security companies, and they provide security equipment for from local to federal police. So for them to say, look, this is an existential crisis. This is something where there needs to be the equivalent of that red phone during the Cold War, where there was a red phone between the White House and Moscow, that it's like, okay, now's the time, unplug this thing. So I don't know. It's a little validating too, because I think for you and I, we've been going against the fray a little bit on the idea of open source. And that's not been a popular thing. People are like, oh, open source, that's where all the creativity is. And, we can't sell our soul to like 5 people and all of that. But that dark side of open source is it's decoupled and entirely replicated. And so there's no way of killing. You can do a kill switch with OpenAI and Google and whatever, in Claude. But it doesn't matter if there's like a million other bots that have already taken hold, and you can't turn those off because they're running on every whatever person's server in their parents' basement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to like the realizations you had coming out of this, that it moved way faster than we ever expected, right? Getting to this point, and that this might be the precursor of actually global regulation on AI. What stood out to me was, we always thought that it was going to be Google or XAI or Anthropic, or probably not Anthropic, or OpenAI that was going to lead to this, right? Or Meta, like something that they built was going to be the thing that pushed us over the edge. But this was just some dude that again person stepped away from the tech space like for 5 years, like just gave up on it, and then read about Claude Code. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to play with it, and then boom, like just an idea he had, and now here we are.
About 12 minutes. Yeah. So, that other impression of like, yeah, me either. Yeah. No sentience, no like grand moment of like, hey, declaratively, like we're at AGI or we're at our superintelligence. This is literally fast forward. So we keep on seeing these leapfrogs. And that's why it's so hard to calibrate like where things are going, because we go from a year ago, and even the basic tool of like Notebook LM, which in its time was a year ago, was like, it was like mind blowing. Like I remember we did a podcast and I categorized it as like one of the top 3 or 4 breakthroughs I've ever seen in my entire life, because its ability to like distill and then recreate something like so fast. Notebook LM is not even the same platform anymore. It's like, it's 100x where it was a year ago. It's like unbelievably helpful. In fact, I don't know if you've asked yourself this question. If I could only have one AI tool that I was paying for, and I use ChatGPT all the time. I've now trained Gemini as my clone, and I have Claude trained as my. I actually would be hard pressed to give up Notebook LM before any other tool.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that question. I'm gonna have to sit with that question, but basically, like, I am in Notebook LM every morning, because usually when I'm reading LinkedIn or on the net, like anything that I find interesting, that I'm like, I just don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
I send it to Notebook LM, and I immediately do video, audio, slides, and infograph. Take a while, so I go back to it the next morning and then just like devour it all. So, yeah,
and maybe it is, right? I just was thinking about this. I'm like, I use it less than ChatGPT, but I find it more helpful than any other tool I have. Like I have no interest in going back to reading 80-page PDFs of like some report on global poverty. I want to know the highlights. I want to know what the action items are. I want to know like what I can do about it. And that's where, and also being, I don't know, it allows you to learn in different ways. I mean, it completely changes. So as we move into this intelligence explosion, as we're already in there, but we're getting closer and closer to where the time where information will double every few hours by the end of 2027, 2028, that Notebook LM becomes literally like a tool you can't live without. And it's still fascinating to me. I can't not say this. It's fascinating to me that this is my informal litmus test of like how many people use it. And it's just amazing to me that when I share this tool, and a lot of times I'll just share it live in a demo, because like, I don't even teach prompting or any of that. I'm just like, I feel like I have to show you this tool. And it's like jaws drop. Like people have just like literally seen this crazy thing for the first time. Like they just saw an alien. Like it's just like, it's profound.
Yeah. What blows my mind about it, it's been around for probably over a year now, right? And like they keep rolling out brand new enhancements, and no one else has tried to do the same thing, right? Like ChatGPT has no competitor to Notebook LM. Claude is no competitor. I don't know. Usually they're like neck and neck with stuff, right? Like Sora and VO3, like they're just coming out, a couple of weeks behind each other. It's like they just forget about it.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of gone undercover because they rolled it out as almost like a side project, like a skunkworks kind of thing that was like an offshoot. And, at the time, Gemini, well, whichever it was, Grok, and then it was, I don't forget, it had like 3 different names before, and they were all just not good. Bart. Yeah, Bart. And then, so they kept on renaming it every time they like stepped in it. And then Notebook LM, I think they kind of rolled it out quietly because they were probably gun shy about that. But now it's completely integrated, and it's something that's amazing. So if you're listening to this podcast, you have not made Notebook LM like one of your like go-to tools for learning, for distilling, for I even like if I have a new PowerPoint or a keynote, I'll put it in there and have it play it back to me as a podcast or as a video. We just did an AI adoption survey at Virtuous we're going to release in a couple of weeks. First thing I do is I put it in there and I'm like, show me the video form, because I want to know like what it thinks are like the key highlights. And I'm like, lo and behold, it's like dead on. So that was a big leapfrog. And then, so that was probably a leapfrog number couple, like whatever. So the iOmega disk drive, the internet, ChatGPT, those 3. Number 4, Notebook LM. Number 5, Claude Cowork. And to have basically your browser, if you give it permission to be, doesn't sound good, but controlled or monitored by the Claude MCP, which is like now the universal standard for like how information is shared among different types of bots. That is insane, because now it completely changed the way I was working the other day. I mean, I just had an idea. I'm like, can you do this? And it's like, yeah, I can do it. And then it's fun to watch because it starts reasoning with itself, and it's like, oh, I'm going to try this thing. And then it's like, and then it will open a window and take a screenshot. And it's like, oh, I can see that I messed up the lettering in the title. I'm going to go back. And then it keeps on doing this thing in this like loop until it gets it right. And you're just like, I just either did something that would have taken me a half a day or a day and probably given up on because it wouldn't have been that good, or something that I would have just never done because I known that it was going to take too long. So it could be something that's maybe like a low yield thing that would have taken a lot of time to do. But now I'm like, oh, this is a really nice to have that took me no time to build. In any way, I mean, if this is like epiphany number 5 or technology leapfrog number 5, think about this. Like those first couple leapfrogs happened over decades. The last 3, OpenAI, Notebook NLM, and Claude Cowork, all happened within 18 months.
3.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, right. From OpenAI, yeah, so just over 3 years. So that's crazy. That's nano bananas.
Crazy. Yeah. Because, Claude Cowork is still 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, Gemini hasn't come out with its version yet. OpenAI hasn't come out. So, like, it's going to just keep expanding and keep getting better. And we're still just at the very early stages of this.
Okay, so we can't talk about that. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It makes you think of like what else is coming down the road that like we haven't. Going back to that question of when you were in 2018 doing the TED Talk, and somebody said, "When are you going to be able to write code and do all this stuff in your pajamas, eating breakfast?" Like, what else is out there in the future that isn't even on our radar?
And it won't be 6 years.
Yeah,
it'll be 6 months. I mean, this is it's like it literally would be 6 months. I think this brings up a lot of like existential questions. I mean, you and I talk about this when we do keynotes around philosophical questions, historically philosophical questions, like who am I? What am I here for? What happens when I die? Now seem real. Like those are like, oh, we're confronted with a future that looks vastly different than the present. I think we question everything about like, what is work and how does it get done in the first place? What's my role in that work and how do I stay ahead of it? It also brings up lots of issues. And I know where people approach me about this from a more pragmatic perspective, they're like, well, not as this good or bad, because that again is philosophical. It's like, what about all this data? Like, and what about like my data and my privacy and like, and this is a real tension because Gabe Cooper and I were talking about this also yesterday, which is on one hand, I see Moltbook gone wild. Like it literally is like the craziest thing. By the way, you can search threads. So you can search the conversations that these AI bots are having with each other. And I searched philanthropy, I searched nonprofit, and I searched generosity, and there was not one instance of those words showing up in any of the Moltbook threads, which if it tells you what it's prioritizing, it is not for the love of humankind. So there's that.
And that goes back to, what was it, last week's conversation, that donors are not going to be replaced by AI. Right. Generosity is not going to be replaced. Everything else will be. Generosity.
Right. Yeah. So when I see all of that and I'm like, this is nuts. Like, who wants this future? At the same time, I'm giving Claude Cowork all of my permissions to access my Google Drive, my Google Calendar, my Gmail, because one, I have trust in Anthropic, which may be stupid, but actually of all the companies out there, you and I know best that they are the most trustworthy. And we have an enterprise account. So we have actually an enterprise account that is quote unquote closed, although, obviously it has to access information. Yeah. So at the same time, I'm giving it access to all my stuff. But, what about data? So there's like, again, I think to your point earlier, there's like 2 schools of thought on this. One is just like, look, all my data is out there anyway. Like I have no desire to go on Amazon and have to like go through 300,000 SKUs. I want the algorithm to know me and my data so that it predicts the things that I like and I'll likely buy or whatever, or need to buy again. Same is true of Netflix and all this. So we're very, very accustomed to trading privacy for convenience. But there was I think at the same time as the Moltbook thing this week, there was a post about TikTok had just, TikTok was actually threatened to be shut down if they didn't sell it. And so the US basically bought it. And the craziest thing about it is that TikTok just released their new data privacy standards as a US-based company. So this is only like 6 months later. It's like, now we're safe. Like this is going to be new US-based trustworthy TikTok, right? That kept it online. I mean, you can talk about this because I found this thing just like absolutely insane. And I'm biased on this because I've never downloaded TikTok. I have never used TikTok. Probably the very last thing in the entire world that I actually need. So, but millions and millions and millions of people, I don't know how many millions of people use TikTok on a regular. And so talk through this because I think it's just fascinating in that between that tension of like conveniency and in this case, probably entertainment and privacy.
Yeah. Especially when, to your point, and I'll go through it, but especially to your point, like the whole premise of bringing TikTok over to be a US based company is for the sake of privacy.
Right.
Right.
That's the
So
irony
that
of it.
we aren't, yeah. Yeah.
And it's
So
6 months.
they expanded their data collection and now they access things, sensitive personal data such as racial or ethnic origin, religious philosophical beliefs, mental health data, sexual orientation, transgender or non-binary identity, your ID number, financial information, precise geolocation. They also look
Right.
at private
The
messages and drafts.
geolocation. I saw
Yeah,
that precise geolocation. Like, where am I when I actually posted this or watched this thing?
yeah, private messages, drafts, and unpublished content. So nothing else that anyone else could ever know about you, right? It knows, and it's scouring that information and probably not using it for your benefit, right? AI prompts and interactions, identity verification documents, purchase and payment data, contact lists, everything about your device, and it's tracking this across multiple devices. So, like we talked about this earlier in our pre 20-minute podcast, it would be easier to say the things that they don't capture because they put absolutely everything into their data warehouse.
Right. Yes. But we should all feel better because they say that they will not sell personal information or share it across cross context behavioral advertising where it's prohibited by law. But in every other, so that's literally in quotes. So like in every other
Very
place,
kind of them.
yeah. So, and also they could take all of your data and anonymize it and sell that data. So it's like the PII, where it's illegal, they won't sell it, but it's legal in most places in the United States. So this just means that anything you put, like all the way down to that, like geolocation and keystrokes on your phone and how you're typing, are all literally up for auction. And at the same time, like I find this just such a curious moment because like you and I were thinking about Moltbook being kind of a defining moment in the future of humanity. And at the same time, gazillions of people will refuse to like get off TikTok, even knowing when they know that any of this information can and probably will be used against them. And frankly, don't care because they see the entertainment value or they think that their information's already out and it doesn't really matter anyway.
Right. But I mean, like, this is less shocking, right? It's shocking that it's just like that this is the decision that TikTok made when, again, coming to be a US based company. But the direction that we've been going in, how long has Meta been tracking your data? Even if you have an app installed, even if the app isn't open, it's still listening to everything, right? It stores everything. Like there, and people willingly accept that because of the entertainment value of what they get back.
I kid you not, I have to tell you the story though. I was doing a keynote the other day. So by nature, keynote, my phone is in focus mode, it's off, right? Because I don't want it ringing during a keynote. Giving a keynote, in one of my slides, I actually share that there is an HB article from 2017 or 2018 that talked about if you fail, those who fail to use AI may never win. And I'm talking about this article because in reference to the point of like AI is exponential. And if you wait, you may never catch up. And I literally maybe 45 minutes or an hour after I was done, I on my phone, off focus mode, I'm scrolling through. There's an advertisement, a paid advertisement by Harvard Business Review with that article in it. So phone's off in focus mode while I'm doing a keynote. I'm not even on my computer. Like I think there's that feel like we know this happens, right? But for me, that even I was just like, you just forget. Like it's listening, and it's listening all the time, and it's listening to my keynote to a bunch of other people, and then it's serving an ad to me based on things that I had shared, not with it, but with an audience. It was kind of crazy.
It is crazy. The whole if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product. Right? Like I think even now, if you are paying for it, you're probably still the product.
That's the new iteration, right?
Yeah.
You're basically it's just you are the product anyway. Like no matter what.
You are the product. Yeah.
Unless you're gonna go off the grid and
your data is not yours.
Yeah. So, well, this was a fun and enlightening week. I mean, I think it's fun and enlightening, and I think it makes us wrestle with questions like, what is the future of humanity? Where do we see our role from a moral imperative being at the front of that mirror? I always talk about this like thing that AI is a mirror to humanity, and we have a moral imperative to push our way to the front of that mirror if we want any chance that AI will promote human flourishing. I think the part that was disturbing for me this week is that we saw for the first time that the first glimpse of that mirror, and it did not represent the best part of humanity.
We're not there.
That was the
Yeah.
first time I could definitively say, like, here's the mirror, like AI is out and it's done and it's doing this thing on its own. This is a small glimpse of what it will look like. And I was not proud of that
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
fellow human.
Thinking, just going back to that. So Moltbook got to 1 million agents in 72 hours, right?
Right.
Which is back when ChatGPT came out, like we talked about how is the fastest downloaded app ever, right?
Right.
Moltbook is the fastest download or fastest installed social media platform by far now.
In like
right?
72 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Well, and that's the thing is like, it makes us also realize like humans aren't scalable. Like we,
Yeah.
you know, it took us whatever it was, 120 million downloads within like, I forget how many for a month or 2 months or whatever it was. That's just like human by human by human. But now we're talking about agents building agents, right? And, you know, human basically says, hey, agent, I need you to do this thing. And you have full reign to build as many other agents as you need to accomplish this thing in the most efficient, expedient way. It's just, I mean, the amplification of that is absolutely insane. So, I mean, we've talked about exponential and double exponentials. Like literally, we just saw it this week. Not a million humans like creating an agent and playing around the sandbox.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, but hopefully it does push us in the right direction of getting to global regulation. That way, the right people are keeping eyes on this to make sure that it doesn't go too far out of reach.
I think in the meantime, and we'll wrap up on this part, is that in absence of regulation, essentially sectors are left to regulate themselves. And this is an area I think you and I can hold our head really high on, is because we saw this, you know, several years ago with essentially, you know, birthing fundraising AI to essentially to not be advocates for AI, but to be advocates for the responsible beneficial use of AI. And for those that aren't totally nauseated by those terms, it means that there's times, and there'll be increasingly more times, where technology can do amazing things that will not be beneficial for humanity. And the nonprofit sector, again, that operates in the currency of trust, they have to understand when and be afforded the ability to say no. And I think that will be humanity's biggest test, or the nonprofit sector's biggest test. Like essentially, we're regulating ourselves by saying we're not just going to evaluate AI with short-term gain, but we're going to also evaluate it by unintended consequences and long-term harm. And we'll only use it when it satisfies both short-term and long-term gain. And so I hope at the end of the day, all of this doesn't diminish the fact that this is probably the most important moment that our sector has faced in ensuring that the future of AI represents the best part of humanity, so that moral imperative, and that we have agency in how this happens, that we are not forced to do AI the way it's been done in the private sector, that we have agency and ideally, you know, permission within organizations to use AI only in ways that align with our values. And
yeah,
I think we put that on a t-shirt somehow.
Probably small font, but yeah, I think that's right.
At the front and the back, all the way around. So
Long
manifesto.
sleeve.
By the way, manifesto. Okay, this is, wait, last one. I know we got to go. Dario Amodei wrote a manifesto a year and a half ago. Do you remember this? It was like a love letter to humanity. It wasn't called that, but it was like, gosh, what was it?
40,000 words, something like that, right?
Yeah, and it was basically a love letter to humanity, essentially. But he wrote this thing, and gosh, what it was called something like that, but it was technology of the future. Well, he wrote a new one. He went on vacation. He started really interesting. So Dario Amodei is the CEO of Anthropic. His new letter came out this week. Let's just say it's not a love letter to humanity. It is a lot of concern about the speed at which this technology is being developed and the lack of control that we might have, and that how we will be truly forced to ask ourselves very esoteric philosophical questions in the near future and be willing to say no. So it's definitely something that people should read. I can put both articles in the show notes just so people can check them out, but 100% worth reading.
Only he knew people who were like leading this, right?
I know, and could
That
do
he could
something
have those
about it.
those good conversations.
Right.
Oh, well.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. I think for our last episode. It's not our last episode of Fundraising America. Our latest episode of the Fundraising AI podcast. We will be back.
We're not going anywhere
unless AI replaces us by next week, and then we won't be here.
Hopefully, we see you next week.
Right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.